Hi everybody, Meteorologist David Paul with you. It is Tuesday evening, it is October the 4th, and Invest 91L, tropical disturbance, is heading for the Caribbean. This one is looking likely to develop over the next several days. Just to remind you, peak of hurricane season was September 10th. Here we are, October 4th. We still have a pretty good chunk of October to go with a good chance for development, statistically speaking, before we really fall off a cliff going into the end of October and going into November when things really settle down. Climatologically speaking, if we get development in the tropics and the Atlantic Basin in October, it develops here, Western Carib, East Gulf, or off the west coast, the east coast of the United States, and the tracks are usually yanked to the north as cold fronts begin to come in this time of the year. Cold fronts and upper level troughs. That's what grabs these storms and pulls them to the north. So that's statistically typically what you would see in a track in October. However, 91L at the moment is forecast to have a very different track than that, at least for the foreseeable future, as it is forecast, and this is what we're looking at, that's 91L. It is forecast to develop in this zone sometime over the next 2 to 5 days and then continue to move almost due west, all the way into the Western Caribbean as we head through the next 5 days. Now, yes, we do have a new tropical depression. It is number 12. This one may become, let's say the next names on the list are Carl and Lisa. So it's going to be a race to see which one will become Carl and then the next one will become Lisa. This one is forecast to maybe become a minimal tropical storm and then fizzle out very quickly. So this one's on the back burner. We're not concerned with TD number 12, not going to impact any landmass or any islands here. Here are the two systems. There's TD 12, a little burst of activity on the infrared satellite there. So we got a tropical depression, closed low. This one is more spread out as far as its thunderstorm coverage, but at the moment we don't have a closed circulation. That's why it has not yet been upgraded to a tropical depression. But that may happen in the next 12 to 18 hours as we're getting some pretty good convection here. Made a little jog to the north, so it's north of 10 degrees latitude. That's where we get enough Coriolis spin to get these things to begin to spin. So it's in a good spot now, and you see the chance for development from the Hurricane Center over the next 2 days is 60% chance, over the next 5 days an 80% chance as it continues to move west. What it's doing right now is it has max winds at 35, moving west at 14. Pressure's holding at 1,007 millibars. It was at 1,008 millibars with the 1 o'clock advisory. Now with the 7 p.m. advisory, it's dropped 1 millibar. Here's a closer view. So right now it's producing some gusty winds, some heavy rain, thunderstorm activity. There is lightning and thunder out here. So here it comes into the islands here. So from Fort de France to Bridgetown and islands to the south and neighborhoods here on the northern side of South America, be prepared for unsettled weather as this moves your way over the next 24 to 48 hours. It's interesting, this is developing in an area where there is some dry air around. That's the yellow areas here. But it's got enough of its own moisture kind of cordoned off that it's developing, at least decently here. We've got decent thunderstorm activity. At the moment, I don't see any dry air being wrapped into this. What I do see, and what you can probably see, is we've got this outflow. See the outflow of the clouds, the high cirrus moving away from roughly the center of the system. So that means we've got exhaust at the upper levels. That's what you want to see for a developing storm. The heat comes in off the ocean surface, worked its way up through the storm, releases its latent heat, rain, thunderstorms, and then those cold cloud tops exit out the top. That's a healthy developing system. And that's a good sign that you've got a system that has what it takes, at least upper level wise, to develop. Let's see. Yeah, see, we've also got some feathering here. See the outflow at the upper levels there. So it's got upper level divergence at all levels, all the way around, all quadrants around the system. So it looks likely that this is going to become a depression or a storm in the next couple of days here. Plenty of warm water. This is the energy for these storms to develop. 87 degree water here, 88, 88, 88. So it's near bath water across the eastern and central Caribbean Sea. But just because you have warm water does not mean you're going to have a lot of hurricanes. It just doesn't. A much larger factor is what's going on at the upper levels with the wind shear. So this is wind shear from 700 to 500 millibars. Wind shear, that's wind blowing across the storm, which can disrupt its developing circulation. And as you can see right in here, there's a little bit of shear over the next couple of days. This is going into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So over the next several days, as we get into Sunday, there's just not a lot of shear. And by that time, the system will probably be in the Central Caribbean in an unsheared environment. That allows it to vertically stack, and it's another thing in favor of this system developing into a depression, a named storm, or beyond. An initial look at the spaghetti plots shows that likely to continue to move due west, instead of one of those tracks almost due north that we statistically quite often get out of these October systems. And we'll take a look at why that is in just a moment. But looking at the spaghetti plots, we've got a tropical disturbance. So who needs to be paying attention to this? So southern portion of the island of Hispaniola, Jamaica, northern South America, Venezuela, but in particular Honduras, Nicaragua, Belize, and Cancun and Cozumel, Mexico, really need to be paying attention to this, because several of the global models now, and especially the evening run, the 18Z of the GFS, does bring this all the way across as a pretty strong storm and gets it into the Yucatan Peninsula. That's 7 days out, so you're looking at a resultant forecast here at the end of the run here going into next Monday, Tuesday, so it's a ways away, but this is a time to be paying very close attention to that forecast. Now, let's talk about where this is going to go, the steering currents, what's going to help its development, what's going to hinder its development. So here we are Tuesday evening. This is the upper level wind flow at 34,000 feet. Here's where our system is brewing, our area of disturbed weather. And what we've got sitting over the Caribbean right now, can you see this clockwise flow right here? So that's a ridge of high pressure. It's not a huge ridge, but it is a ridge nonetheless. In other words, this represents a mountain of air. So as far as mountains go, this is kind of like, the Appalachians. It's not the Himalayas. So it's a mountain, but it's not too big and bad. So this storm is going to be moving into the Caribbean, and on the southeastern edge of that mountain of air, here's the mountain. This is going into Saturday, so 5 days out. There's our system. And look at how the upper level flow is all exiting, so that's a good spot for a storm to develop in here. Very light to no wind shear across the storm. It's all flowing away from the storm at the high levels. And here's our mountain of air. So this mountain of air is what is trapping and pushing the system and keeping it on that southerly western track. We need to see this mountain get out of the way for it to turn north and get caught in these stronger upper level winds at a higher latitude. But going into Saturday, that mountain of air is enough to keep it down across the central or even southern Caribbean Sea. So let's go forward in time. There's Saturday, there's Sunday. Here's our mountain of air. We go into Tuesday, so a week out from today, so 7 days out. And here's our elongated ridge of high pressure. And there's the system being trapped on the southern edge of that mountain of air. So that's why the models are all showing it taking that due west trajectory instead of turning north. This mountain is just sitting and trapping it and keeping it on that westerly track. This is the 18Z of the GFS, and look at how it develops this storm into a hurricane. That's a strong hurricane right there, looking at Tuesday. So we're 7 days out. So I'm going to run this out another day, but be advised, this far out in time, the amount of error in the forecast modeling grows and grows and grows. So we're going to take this with a grain of salt, but here's the way it looks going into Wednesday evening. And that would be a hurricane hitting maybe south of Cozumel going into Wednesday night. But again, this is now 8 days out. Every moment you go out in time with the computer model, the amount of error grows and grows and grows. And so that's why, we hesitate, or we put a grain of salt. That's why the cone, when they do finally put one out, gets wider and wider the further you go out in time, because the amount of error increases. But it is interesting to look at this last frame. So what do we see here? So here's our ridge. Notice how the system, at least by this computer modeling, has gotten directly underneath that ridge of high pressure. That's one of the reasons why it explodes in intensity. You get a developing surface-based low pressure area underneath an upper level ridge of high pressure, underneath the center of it. And what you've got is perfect light winds with outflow across all quadrants, and that's the exact type of upper level wind pattern you would want to see if you want to see a hurricane just explode in intensity. That's why they intensify so quickly. It's not because of warm water. It's because of what's going on at the upper levels. So that's going into Wednesday. I think at this point, we're just not going to show, or not going to look at all the different possibilities on models because we're getting out, 8 days out and there's a lot of uncertainty. The bottom line here is this is something that everybody needs to be paying attention to across the United States. In the Caribbean, paying very close attention to it because, again, this is just one computer model run, one computer model, the GFS, and that forecast is going to change as we move forward in time. That's where we stand right now. I'll read your comments, leave them also, hit me up on social, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward over the coming days.